Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, what happened to Fulltone pedals? Coming up. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. Before I get too deep into today's subject, I just want to say thank you to everyone who watched the Guitar Center video. Other than that, please like and subscribe. We're going to move on to the main topic, right? So, Fulltone pedals. Obviously, a lot has been going on in the last couple of months for them. If you are a guitar player, a pedal enthusiast, you might be well familiar with Fulltone pedals. For the rest of you, if you're not, I'm not going to go into a big history on this. I'm going to give plenty of links below. There's some great videos going over the Fulltone history. There's even a decent video on Sweetwater right now that's really severely underwatched. I'm surprised. About 8,000 views or something right now as the time I record this, where it's Mike Fuller and Brad Jackson going over the lineup of the Fulltone pedals, Fulltone USA being the new branded company. This is the new company that has, of course, Brad Jackson as its CEO and Mike Fuller as the chief design officer. So kind of an interesting development there. But in that video that I'm going to link below, Mike Fuller also kind of goes over his history and how Fulltone kind of got its start. Now, obviously, I'm sort of beating around the bush here a little bit. The well-popular controversy, and I say controversy, I mean literally go to google.com, type in Fulltone as you're typing in Fulltone. Fulltone controversy is one of the first things that pops up. And the controversy ultimately lands at the feet of Mike Fuller, who is the owner of, was the owner of Fulltone pedals. I'm not sure how his relationship is now with Brad Jackson, but he is the guy responsible for Fulltone pedals, the man responsible for the OCD, for the Full Drive, the Deja Vibe. These are the pedals that I remember growing up. I mean, I say growing up, I was probably in my mid-20s when I started seeing these pedals. These were like the first, I guess what you would say, boutique pedals. They weren't Boss, they weren't MXR. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a major branded, it wasn't an Ibanez or anything like that. It wasn't a major brand of pedal, but yet I was seeing them everywhere. And it was always some guy whose tone I was really envious of, or I thought had really great tone. And as we all do as players, we take that little peek over the pedal board, and ultimately there would be a Full Drive or an OCD or an Octofuzz and something like that, something from Fulltone pedals. This was sort of early. I mean, the internet was out there when I started hearing about these pedals, but obviously we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have pedal personalities like we do now. So the world was just a little different. I don't know that any of my friends or anybody really knew the background reputation of Mike Fuller. I don't know how long this reputation of his has been going on, but I thought I would at least kind of give you a brief summary of what I think are two main issues that people have with Mike Fuller, or two main kind of things that really that have caused Fulltone to be in the position that it's in. And I thought we'd go over that and really try to understand, or I guess maybe decide as consumers, is this a company that we should be giving our money to? And if a person isn't a very nice person, does that mean that we shouldn't buy their product? Do you separate the person from the art? We're going to hopefully delve into all of that. So I don't know how helpful this will be, but I just want to give you a little bit of background on myself as far as guitar pedals and stuff goes. When Fulltone first came out, I was broke. I was a broke 20-something. I played in a cover band, and I played a couple of classic vibe Squires with some very cheap pedals. And I've been playing guitar for almost 30 years, but guitar pedals for me, I've flipped pedals for a little bit to earn some extra money. I'm fairly familiar with stuff, but I wouldn't consider myself like a pedal junkie. I've never really been into boutique pedals. In fact, I pulled some pedals off the old board here that just to kind of give you an idea of what kind of pedals do it for me as a guy who's almost 43. For example, I don't have like super fancy tastes or anything. Like this is the delay pedal that I like. I'm sorry if I'm hitting the microphone. Boss DD3. It's kind of my delay pedal. Speaking of Boss, I have an old TU2 that has been used a couple of times. Still going, still moving. That thing will probably still work after I'm long gone. Again, speaking of Boss, as you can tell, I'm pretty basic dude. This is a Boss DS1. It has been modified by this guy, Oklahoma's own Robert Keeley. Got the old bonsai here. I guess, again, I don't know if you would consider JHS a boutique brand. I like this because I can switch from an OD1 to a TS9. Obviously, there's a TS10 down here. I have no idea. I've never used it. So, John Mayer, bro, right? So, Marshall Governor. Again, cool pedals probably for some people, but definitely far from boutique. No Chase Bliss, no Jackson Audio, which again, Jackson Audio makes really cool pedals. If you've ever played the Bloom or the, is it the Broken Arrow? Is that the Overdrive? I don't know. They got a bunch. They'll have like 6 to 9 knobs that my size 14 feet just feel like they're going to smash. So maybe that's part of the phobia going in. So I guess I say all this to tell you that I don't have any like skin in the game here. I don't have like a bone to pick with Mike Fuller. I also don't think he's God's gift to pedals. I just find the fascinating situation with him because when all of this went down, and we'll get into kind of when things really started crashing down for Mike Fuller in Fulltone, unfortunately as a result, really when we're talking about Fulltone pedals, when we're talking about Mike Fuller, and we're talking about the things that make people bristle about Mike Fuller, they're really going to talk about two kind of areas. One is going to be, and by the way, when I was researching this video, I came across literally hundreds of threads, blog posts, responses in posts, Facebook group stuff going on where people would have this message or this thread would start with, I love Fulltone pedals and I bought a pedal and it didn't work or it wasn't doing something and I got a hold of customer service at Fulltone, and wouldn't you know it, old Mike Fuller himself responded. And usually 9 times out of 10, this is where things start going south. One of 3 things is going to happen to the person in question. One, Mike may insult their intelligence. Mike may accuse them of not knowing what they're doing. And Mike may accuse them of not using the preferred power supply. This is what I read. This is my summarization of essentially what I read. A lot of angry gear page threads. And now here's the thing. I don't take every account as gospel, but I'm one of those people to where if I've heard it 100 times, chances are it's probably true. If Josh Scott had 100 of those threads, we would be talking very differently about Josh Scott with JHS, but we don't see those, interestingly enough, right? So maybe he's not a jerk, and maybe Mike Fuller is a jerk. Maybe. Again, this is something that's going to be brought up. Again, I have no personal feelings about this. I will tell you that I have heard stories from people who have done business with him. I don't want to name their names because they might still try to do business with him. And I've heard stories secondhand and third hand and fourth hand and whatever about this guy's reputation for being essentially a prickly pear when it comes to dealing with customers, dealers, things like that. That's one thing. And that alone has probably been building for a while. Based on my research, I saw threads going back to 2009 where people were saying, I'll never deal with this guy again. What a jerk. And I've never, how dare he? And I've never been so insulted in all my life, and a lot of that stuff. To be fair, I don't know that you ever would expect the owner of a company to reach out the way that Mike Fuller allegedly has. Now, I will say very few of these threads, either due to forum rules, won't post the information that goes back and forth. So an argument could be made, like, what was their message to him? I could only imagine the kind of stuff that the customer service for Fulltone pedals might get. But one would argue, why is the owner of Fulltone pedals personally responsible for answering customer service emails? I think at a certain point, maybe he should have been pulled away from that duty, but when it's your company, right, who's going to tell you otherwise? So that's one thing that we're going to hear about Mike Fuller. And I could post links. I could post links that would probably break the character limit on the YouTube description that would essentially kind of echo what I've summarized in that statement, okay? So that's one thing. Then COVID hit. Then George Floyd died. Then there were the riots. Then Mike Fuller got on social media. You know where this is going, right? I'll link the articles. I'll probably show the headlines here. But at some point in June, I think it was June 2nd, again, this isn't an investigative report, Mike Fuller goes on social media to make some commentary regarding the riots that were currently happening all across the country. I mean, protests were happening all around the country. I mean, I was in Oklahoma, no one rioted. I think there was a peaceful protest in a couple of places. Mike's facility in Culver City, California, I looked up newspaper articles, Wikipedia. As far as I know, nothing really dangerous was going on in Culver City. A peaceful protest, from what I recall. Again, I'll show little links if I'm wrong or something else happened. But anyway, just put that in the background. But allegedly, apparently, Mike is watching television or whatever. And granted, you gotta be kidding me, dude. It was obviously enough to cause a significant backlash, not only amongst artists, but amongst dealers in the community. To this day, Fulltone products are not sold in Guitar Center. Funny enough, Jackson Audio is. I don't know how they've worked that one out. The thing, what he says, I mean, look, I don't want to turn this into politics. I don't care. I don't care what, here's the thing. You don't care what my beliefs are. I really don't care what your politics are. We're talking guitars here. In my personal opinion, with Mike Fuller being the figurehead and the face of a company like that, the best thing for him to have done is to stay off social media, keep your mouth shut, keep your thoughts to yourself, maybe vent to a couple of close friends and move on with yourself, with your life. And I'm not here to tell him that, you don't have a right to say what you want. You do have a right. He did. He expressed his freedom of speech quite well. And I think it was one of the last straws for a lot of people. I think if Mike Fuller had had a gleaming reputation up until that point, I think things would be very different. But I think what happens is when you make a lot of enemies or you make a lot of people angry and a lot of people swear you off and I'm done with this guy, he's a big jerk, and then the big jerk puts his foot in his mouth like Mike Fuller clearly did. I believe he even admits it so. When he gets into, as we'll get later on with the closing of the California facility, he really did put his foot in it. It was a really dumb thing to say. Whether or not you agree with that statement, it was a dumb thing to say. Irregardless of whether you think what he's saying or the message behind it was good, it was not a good time to bring that up. It wasn't a great place to let your thoughts be known. Again, you have a responsibility as a business owner. Again, if you're just a faceless dude, like let's say you own a couple of McDonald's in town, you're just a franchise owner. Who cares what you say about Obama or Trump or politicians or policies or abortion or gun control? I don't care, by the way, whatever you want to say, old man. But then the problem is that when you're Mike Fuller, a Fulltone, and you have named the company after you essentially, and you are the brains behind it, you are the man behind the pedal. At the same time, let me just say this as devil's advocate, just a little bit. He's a business owner. He has to be concerned about his business. He has to feel a little helpless that this is going on. Does that justify what he said? Not in a million years. But I think he got himself worked up. If you watch interviews with him, he does seem to be a rather anxious person. Again, I'm not making excuses, but I'm just trying to find the logic that would cause somebody at his age to get on Facebook and start saying the things he did. The other thing I should bring up too is along with this little rant on social media, someone emailed him. Allegedly, we have his response that's been printed. I can't imagine he gets super pleasant emails to this day, but I don't think it really justifies what he then responds with. And again, I'll put a screen capture of that on there. I think it's just anger. And again, look, if you're just a dude who owns a couple of McDonald's and you say some stupid stuff, maybe you're a flat earther or something, or, no offense to the flat earth people, right? We all need pedals. You may disagree with Mike. He says some silly things. You can kind of look past some of that, right? You can kind of look past, God, he's a grumpy grouch on the customer service side. But then he like tells people to sell their pedals, and I hope someone breaks into your home. That's called like a lot of anger and a lot of passion kind of in the wrong direction. And I think what happens is that when the pedals are your children, they're your creation, they're something you've worked really hard for, and you've spent time and money, and you're seeing all this stuff on TV, you're quarantined, and you're watching TV, and you're getting worked up, and boy, you got a lot to say. Man, find something else to do. Turn off your internet. Go play guitar, Mike. I mean, I think, how many of his friends had to have been like, dude, come on, man. So, like I said, I think these two things, the history of horrific customer service mixed with the social media outburst, mixed with the reaction to the social media outburst. So not only does he have the social media outburst, not only does he tell one person that I hope your house gets robbed and someone steals all your pedals, not only does, as a result of that, a few artists, boycott his pedals, Guitar Center stops carrying his stuff. Reverb for a little bit stops carrying his stuff. That's a whole nother story. Why say things? Why be so divisive over something that, you're one person and this is happening outside of your control? I know you have your thoughts about it, but is it really worth losing your business over? I guess that brings up another point I wanted to touch on. Hopefully I'm not rambling too much, but this idea that your thoughts, political, religious, whatever they are, is it worth your business? Is it worth the thing that you've spent 30 years building? Is it worth losing the OCD pedal? I can tell you, I can't imagine. I don't get the impression that Josh Scott or Mike Matthews or Brian Wampler are really looking to have their companies endorse a president, endorse a cause. I don't see any of them talking about abortion or gun control or anything. You know why? Because they sell pedals. That's what you want to talk about. That's what Josh Scott wants to talk about. I don't think he wants to talk about abortion. Okay, who cares what he thinks about abortion? That's not what I'm interested in with him. I'm interested in these guys. That's what I want to talk about with this guy. If I ever met him, that's what I'd want to talk about. This bonsai. It's amazing. An OD1 and a TS9 and a one pedal, and amongst others, some overdrives in there too, but I get if you're Mike Fuller, you can tell people that, I'm more than just a guy who sells pedals, but you're a businessman and you have made yourself the face of that company. There's plenty of other companies who don't decide to let their owner be the face of the company, and probably for good reason, right? I think we've learned from Papa John by now that sometimes the owner is not always going to be the greatest figurehead in the world, right? I mean, let's get real here. There's a value that we're seeing in this YouTube generation as far as how pedal builders are able to advertise. They talk about it in other videos with Mike Fuller, and even Josh Scott brings it up in his video. I'm going to link that down below when Fulltone closed its California facility. Josh Scott does an amazing episode talking about what's in store. He pretty much predicts what's going to happen, what has happened with Fulltone since then. But again, getting back to the value of a face, I mean, think about what Josh Scott has done for JHS pedals and for pedals in general. I mean, we're at a point where if Josh Scott says a certain pedal is the greatest thing since sliced bread, the value can skyrocket in a New York Minute. The memes can come in, the people who are antagonistic. It just sparks all this interest and debate and things like that. We are living in a time where guys like that can have a huge influence on how much their pedals sell. Josh Scott, again, can do a video about a pedal he's releasing and sell it out in a day. That's incredible. Mike Fuller should be here in this situation. He should be right in the mix. His place should be here, but yet it's not. His history is here. The guy has influenced so many of these modern pedal builders. How much do you think personality affects you when you buy a product? And I guess what I mean is, how much does the personality, perceived or real, of a product influence your decision to buy? How much did it influence you when you saw a JHS video, when you bought that JHS pedal? How much was it because you saw Josh and Nick and those guys jamming and looking like they were having a fun time? I mean, let's get real. I'm talking about JHS a lot because they are a company that really, I believe, is doing it right in so many ways. They make a great product, obviously, right? I mean, you think I'm a shill for this stuff, but like, they do a great job. They're 4 hours from me, which is really nice. It's convenient as well. But they've understood the value of bringing a message that's purely focused on pedals and guitar and gear and not on riots and politics. Since Fulltone really came into prominence in the early to mid 2000s. I mean, I know he's been making pedals since the early 90s, but when guys like me in the Midwest found out about him, it was like the early 2000s. That's been 20 years ago. And since then, our options for pedals is exponentially grown. I mean, if I want an overdrive pedal, how many overdrives can I buy from how many vendors? How many people are doing a TS9 type circuit? How many people are doing an OD1 type circuit? And I guess my thing is, like, when Mike Fuller probably started doing this, there wasn't a lot of guys who were doing what he did back then. But now there is. And when you make people angry, when you say things that people don't like, you risk them not buying your product. And look, sometimes getting on YouTube or whatever, saying something on anything on social media will cause somebody to not like you. You know, every video I do gets a dislike. If I said it's free ice cream for everybody, I'd get a dislike. It won't matter. Some people are going to dislike you. And I know, and this is something that when he draws back, and I'll put it up here, but he wrote this big closing letter, or at least I think it was him, talking about, hey, we're closing the Culver City facility. He mentions that it's difficult to make money producing pedals in the U.S. He mentions that although he's financially set, he's got all these employees, some of which have been with him for over a quarter century, that are now not going to have a job. I think he sort of partially acknowledges his failure in that. One might ask him, are you taking enough responsibility in that sense? Because I would wonder if he had kept his mouth shut, would they still be in California right now? And I get it. There's a whole history of years and years of him being horrible to people and bad customer service. But, there's a difference between bad customer service and pissing off a lot of people on the internet because you are angry and saying things that genuinely aren't very good. It's not very helpful. It's not a very nuanced view he had. Let's be honest with you. He was angry at the government. He was angry at the people. So like I did in the last Guitar Center video, I gave 3 predictions. This one's going to be a little different. I'm going to give 3 predictions now based on the recent developments. So as of a couple of months ago, it does look as though Fulltone USA, which I believe is a little bit of a variation on the previous company, has returned. They're producing the new products. And like I said, Sweetwater produced the new video, sort of reintroducing them back to the company. I'm surprised with all the social media backlash about Fulltone that no one spoke a word about Sweetwater just welcoming them back in. So like I was getting at, 3 predictions that I want to make with the idea now that Jackson Audio is essentially running the company, operating the company, and the things that I think they need to do, which will hopefully improve the brand and get Fulltone a little bit more of where it deserves to be. Because despite Mike Fuller's, the things he says and the outbursts and all that kind of stuff, Fulltone makes really great pedals. And it would be great to see these pedals stick around. Because as many people will tell you, I mean, these are very iconic pedals. So anyway, 3 predictions I think are going to happen here. One is I think Jackson Audio is really going to do a lot to clean up Fulltone's less than stellar customer service history. I think that's a big win for fans, for customers, for everybody, frankly. The fact that you don't have to worry about, is Mike Fuller going to send me a big rant-filled email in the middle of the night accusing me of being an idiot? Again, I don't know what these people are telling Mike. Maybe they're calling him everything but a good Christian boy, and so he just kind of hits his limit and just starts firing back at people. But I think keeping him out of the customer service realm would be great. I understand he's a man of passion. I understand these pedals are his babies. All the more reason to get out of the customer service line, because the customer service people and the people calling into customer service, they're not so precious about your children or your pedals, right? So prediction number 1. Prediction 2. Jackson Audio will probably help clean up the brand image by just the association. I think this is a little murky because Mike Fuller is still involved in the company. And frankly, I find that a little bit surprising. It's a blessing and a curse because Mike Fuller, when he's not ranting and raving about riots and all sorts of things that get him in trouble, is genuinely pretty good over talking about his pedals, explaining the history of the pedals, and demoing the pedals. He's a great salesman and a really good guitar player too. You can't take that away from him. I just having him there though, just having him on that front page though, I think is enough that are going to keep the people away. Like if you were hoping that more people come back because Brad Jackson's now the CEO, I think the mere fact that Mike Fuller is involved with the company is going to still keep those people away. I think you may win back some fans over time, but I think the key component there is Mike Fuller's participation, which ultimately leads me to number 3. And I don't say this, again, I don't want to be a fence sitter, but at the same time, I feel like this situation's a little bit more nuanced than the internet wants to give it credit for. I don't think it's simply an issue of this guy's an idiot and he says crazy things on the internet and he's a moron or he's a hothead or he's a jerk and we just need to banish him into the forbidden zone. I haven't seen anything that's super unforgivable that, if he's willing to, say, sorry, I did all that and said all that, which he kind of has, sort of. I mean, again, his apologies are sort of backhanded and heavily revised. And he's a prickly pear. I don't know if you're ever going to see that leopard change his spots, right? Again, this leads me to number 3. I think that Jackson and Fulltone will ultimately sever ties with Mike Fuller at some point. Like I said, the leopard doesn't change his spots. How long before he does it again? How long before something else drives him to post some Instagram video, TikTok video, Facebook post or something? Can you just imagine it? So yeah, I don't say all of this like hoping Mike Fuller gets booted from Jackson Audio or Fulltone USA. I just think it's going to be tough for people to embrace a new Fulltone when the guy who causes so much animosity towards Fulltone is still on board. I don't know what Brad Jackson's plans are full time. I would imagine that there's something in this contract between the two of them where Mike Fuller has to keep his mouth shut to some degree, right? I mean, it's weird that a company like Fulltone has its biggest liability in its ownership, right? Isn't that wild? I mean, we do see it before, but like I said, with Papa John, like, bye, dude. Like they just tossed him, right? And Papa John's is still running. Fulltone could run without Mike Fuller. I get it that he's the creative genius behind those pedals, and he's a great pedal designer. And maybe Brad's hoping that time will just heal all these wounds. And I think eventually it could, but again, that's really up to Mike. And again, you could be messing with a ticking time bomb with this guy. Again, I don't want to be insulting to him. I'm sure he's a decent enough guy when he's not upset or accusing somebody of using the wrong power supply in his pedals. At the end of the day, like I said, I have no skin in this game. I'm just as fascinated as all of you are. I don't really look at this so much as like, do I agree or disagree with his politics? I don't care about Mike Fuller's politics as much as you don't care about mine. I guess I look at it from the business standpoint. Was this the smart business move to get on social media and rant? No, it wasn't. It was never a good idea. Stop doing it. And if you think about it, as if you're a small business owner and you want to run your mouth about politics or religion or whatever it is that you feel strongly about, is it worth losing your business? Is it worth losing what you've built? For some of you, that might be. And you think, well, you know what? It is worth it. For what I'm standing for, it's the righteous thing. I can't tell you otherwise. Having the right to say what you want doesn't protect you from the ramifications of saying what you do say. You are going to be held accountable for those things, especially on the internet, especially if you say something that isn't seen as the most sensitive thing at the most sensitive time. And I get it. People are very sensitive on the internet in general, and we can talk about woke and snowflakes and all these sort of political, silly jargon words that kind of separate us and get us fighting. But I don't really care about that stuff. I don't know what's going to happen with Mike. He seems like a nice guy. He kind of seems like he wanted to retire to Nashville, but now he's not anymore. I don't know. Is he going to make more pedals? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see. I think, like myself, a lot of us will be curious to know what happens. And how does Jackson Audio kind of do this? How do they operate two companies where Jackson has to get any new Fulltone pedal approved by Mike before they can do it? How is that going to work out over time? Well, that's my 2 cents on this. What do you think below? Give me your thoughts. What do you think's going to happen with Fulltone Audio? What's in the future for them? What do you think about Mike Fuller? Good experiences, bad experiences? I should say, with all the bad experiences that I looked up, I found quite a few people who were willing to say that, yeah, not a super friendly guy, but not a malicious person. Just sort of one of those guys who, by his own admission, has some OCD going on, seems very anxious, and I think that might play into it. Sometimes personalities kind of bring out different things. And I try to, as a person, as I get older especially, understand that we're more than just the stupid things we say on the internet. And in my case, thank God, right? Well, that's it. I'm done. I think we've kind of covered it. I don't want to rag on too much about this. But thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. At some point, I'm going to get this infamous review video out there. But until next time, thanks for watching.